What's up, everyone? Welcome back to a Nerdthusiast Poker Podcast. I'm Anthony Hoagie. We got Brian, not the man, here, and we got a special guest we're going to introduce in just a second here, Mr. Jonathan Little. But before we do, just got a quick ad read. Check out New. It's brand new to the Google Store, and on iPhone, it's called Buzzle. It's Buzzle Shopping. It connects social media with shopping. It's a pretty cool app. You can check out for yourself. So when you go buy stuff, you can actually post it, and then if people buy from your link, you actually make some money as well. It's pretty cool, and I think this thing is going to really blow up. So check it out, Buzzle Shopping. All right. Jonathan Little, what's up, man? He's here.
Hello, thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Cool, man. So let's jump into it, man. First off, you've had a really big month. It looks like a couple big cashes here, huh?
I've had a good year in general. I've made a point to kind of ramp up my poker play since the middle of last year, and things have been going pretty well. I've been studying a lot and playing a little bit more. I mean, I have wife and kids at home, so I don't get to play too much poker at this point. Maybe 10 days per month on average.
We understand.
Definitely can relate to that.
So I make a point to play as much as I can in a short period of time. That usually ends up being tournaments in the Poker Go Studio or series like the World Series of Poker, or the series they have in the Bahamas. And, well, it's been going well enough. I've had, I think, 4 decently big scores over the last year, and hopefully we can keep it up.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we've been following, and, it's awesome. But we want to jump back. So we want to know, from the get-go, how did you get into poker, casino, cards, anything? How did that all start?
So I always played a lot of games as a kid, and when I was 12 years old, I started playing Magic the Gathering. I was decently good at Magic the Gathering. I would play those tournaments roughly 4 days per week whenever I was in high school. And one day after a Magic tournament, one of the regular Magic players said, hey, let's play a poker tournament where everybody has to put in 10-cent value cards for the buy-in. So $1 worth of cards. And we played with, let's say, 6 people. And the guy who proposed the game ended up winning, and he had a stack of 60 10-cent value Magic cards. I thought, oh, that's cool. And we did that for a few months, and he crushed us most of the time. I don't think he was cheating. He was probably just way better than us.
Yeah.
But that made me realize that poker was a skill game, kind of like chess that I played a lot as a kid, and Magic the Gathering, which I did quite well at. So I bought all the poker books on the market. There weren't very many. And I put $50 into an online poker site and started playing tiny stakes limit hold'em, because that was the main game back in the day. And then I grinded it up slowly but surely.
And you're saying this was in high school?
I was in high school. This was in roughly 2003.
Okay, and then what was your plan in life at that point? Did you have a plan to go to school, or did you have a particular career path that you were looking into, or was it just poker became like the mainstay from like high school age?
Yeah, I never really had anything I was really, really gung-ho about doing, but I was going to college. I had a full scholarship for being smart enough, I guess. In Florida, if you get okay grades and pass some tests, they give you free scholarship. So I was going to school for engineering, and at that point I was starting to ramp up my poker play a decent amount. So I eventually quit engineering to go to psychology, because I thought that might be useful for poker, and I thought it would be easier. But at that point I was playing poker like 60 hours a week, and that did not work too well with going to school. So I dropped out.
So here, I mean, we always ask this question because, we started playing in college as well. How did that, if you want to talk about it, like your parents or family, like how did they take that when you were like, hey, I'm dropping out to play poker?
They took it very well, but I think it's because I presented poker to them in the best light I possibly could, meaning I had already been playing poker for about a year and a half. I had something like, $150,000 saved up from poker that I started with $50 and had $150K or something like that. I mean, the numbers are fuzzy because it was 20 years ago.
Yeah.
But I had a lot of records. I had this record book. At that point, I was playing sit and go tournaments, and I would keep track of every first, second, third, and out of the money finish. And I essentially had very clear records week to week showing that I'm winning the vast majority of weeks, and I'm winning like every month. And I mean, how can you say no if your kid's making $20K a month and his alternative is to finish a degree, and if he finishes his degree, he'll make $50K a year? I mean, what are you going to say? The only answer is yes. What a lot of people do wrong is their kid has blown through all of their money and all of their savings, and they are a perpetually losing poker player, and they say, hey, parents, I'm going to go quit college to play poker. And that's obviously absurd. So I think if you show most logical people, I've been doing this for a year successfully on the side, I'm going to ramp it up. Why would they not say yes? I mean, I get the idea that a lot of people want their kid to have a degree, but I made it clear, look, I have 100K set aside I can use to get a degree. I'm going to buy my own house. So like that's kind of you're done being adult when you bought your own house. That's like the end of being successful for most people. So I've already done this by the time I'm like 20 years old, and I think yes is the only answer to that question. Also, I had a job at an airport making about $10 per hour, and I quit that before I quit going to college. So my parents were already kind of primed that I'm making way more than $10 per hour playing poker. Yeah, I mean, why would you quit your job if you have a decent? It was a good job. It was a nice, easy job at an airport, fueling up airplanes. It was about as easy as it could be. There was a bunch of free time where I would play and study poker, and but the only logical reason to quit that is if I'm making way more money playing poker, right? So they already knew I was doing well enough at it. They didn't quite know how well I was doing, but it's not like I just immediately quit school out of the blue. I quit my job first, and I showed them I was making good money. I had already like bought my own place, and yes is the only answer if you present it in that manner, I think, unless your opponents are like really, really
and
the mindset you must finish college.
It sounds like you invested your money into a house right away or along that period of time. Like, I'm assuming you weren't blowing your money on Lamborghinis and, big purchases, I'm assuming, or?
No, I actually didn't cash out any money until I had something like $100,000 in my account because I didn't really need the money. I was working my job at the airport, making my $1,000 a month or whatever it was. And I was living with my parents at that point. So I had basically no expenses beyond car insurance and car payment. And so I didn't really have any expenses, right? And I think that's why a lot of people who are roughly my age are the players who are the best poker players in the world today, because when they were 18-ish years old, when the initial poker boom happened, they had no family obligations, they had no expenses, they had a ton of freedom and a ton of time. And some of us put it all into poker and it ended up working out.
Was there ever a point in the early years where you thought you might have made a mistake, or were you just fairly confident that this was a good decision for you?
I don't know if I would necessarily think it's a mistake, but as soon as I did buy my own place and I moved out, I went on a pretty big downswing. I had maybe 200K at this point, and I had, 100K into the house, and then so I had 100K or so liquid, and then I immediately lost like 60K of it playing high stakes sit and goes, and that left me with 40K. I thought, all right, if I lose a little bit more, I'll probably go back to school. But what I decided to do is go back down to the $10 buy-in games, which was one of the smallest games they had online back then for sit and goes. And I decided I was going to win 100 buy-ins at every buy-in level. So $10, $20, $30, $50, 100, and back to 200, and then 500 where I was playing at that point. And I realized I probably wasn't going to make a whole lot of money over that time period, but I was going to prove to myself that I could win a decent amount of buy-ins. And that went amazingly well because it turns out the $10 games are way softer than the $500 games. Yep. And I got back to the $500 games over a few months, and I was right back to it, doing well. And I made a point to study a lot more during that period, and hire coaches to help pinpoint my leaks, and it went well. I mean, I think I did everything you're probably supposed to do if you wanted to be very, very cautious with determining if you are actually a good, strong winning poker player.
So, on the opposite end of that, what was the defining moment for you when you realized that, like, not that you had made it, but that you were one of the best players kind of on the scene at that time?
I don't know if I've ever felt like I'm one of the best players on the scene, and I think that's why I've done well throughout my entire career for the most part. I mean, I think there are, at the high stakes at least, two different types of mindsets. One mindset is I'm the best poker player ever, I crush everyone, nobody can compete with me. And the other is the opposite of that. It's like, oh my God, everyone's so much better than me, I have to study a ton and I have to continue getting better and improving myself. And that's the mindset that I have and that a lot of my friends have. But I realize that's not the only way to approach poker. So I don't know if I have ever 100% felt like, call it, I'm great at poker. I remember before my first WPT win, I was talking to this guy, Daryl Dickin. He was one of the best online sit and go players, who was also at that final table. We were in the valet the day before the final table, and I don't know what I said to him, but it must have been something very insecure because we were friendly on the internet. We talked on the poker forums, right? And we played sit and goes all the time together. He's like, look, you're one of the best sit and go players. You're clearly doing well at tournaments. You should have confidence and be confident in this scenario and go in there and play your absolute best. And, that's a very nice thing to tell your competitor, but I guess it's true. And I mean, a few years later, Phil Hellmuth told me the very same thing. I was like, I don't know how you make these reads. He's like, man, you've been playing live poker for 20 years. You can probably just look and tell, and you need to have confidence in your ability to look and tell. And sometimes you're going to be wrong, but more often than not, you're going to be right, and that's all you need. And I've had people who I view as a good poker player tell me over and over again that I am good. And obviously, I know I'm good. It's not like I think I'm terrible or anything, but I think there's always a lot to learn. And that's why I made my training site, pokercoaching.com, not just to teach everyone else, but so that I had an easy way to hire the people who I respected in the game to make a point to learn from them continuously and forever.
It's a win-win, you know?
Yeah, I mean,
those people.
I think I've never been naturally skilled at anything besides being able to sit down and work hard. And I'm not a naturally gifted poker player. I was naturally weak and tight and straightforward. And I realized maybe I even skew that way today. That's just like my natural way of playing. I kind of want to have the nuts. But, you know, you have to realize that that's not how you win. And you have to work hard away from the table to fix whatever leaks you have. And everybody starts out with a lot of leaks. And as you get better and better, those leaks get plugged and your win rate goes up.
Who did you idolize in the early days of poker? Who was your, like, you know, your first, I don't want to say celebrity crush, but that first time when you sat down, like, oh my God, that's so-and-so or whatnot?
So I had two. One was that guy, Daryl Dickin, I just told you about, funny enough. He was literally the biggest winner in sit and goes. He was the main guy who talked about sit and goes on the various poker forums. Everyone respected him. And it was super cool to get to the WPT final table with him. The other was Phil Ivey, and he was actually at the same final table. And
that's a wake-up call.
Yeah, I mean, and that was pretty cool to be at the final table with both of them. And I had some friends who played a lot online with Phil Ivey, so I called them as soon as he was at my table, like, what should I be doing? And they said, he's going to 3-bet you a lot, so 4-bet a ton. And so I raised, sure enough, he 3-bet me. I 4-bet him, he folded. And we did that process like 6 times. And then he chilled out, and then he left me alone. And you know, I mean, you realize at some point, everyone is a human. They are just trying to play good poker just like you are, even if they do put off this completely strong, indomitable spirit that you can sense it, right? But at the same time, if they don't have anything, they're going to fold. So don't be scared.
So you talked about, getting into it with the poker boom. If you had a choice to play one or the other, what do you prefer? Do you prefer live poker over tournament poker, or is it really dependent on the type of game you're playing?
I think when the edge is clear, online is way nicer because you can just sit down and grind it out and know you're going to make money. Like a long time ago in the sit and goes, I was winning at 10% return on investment. And if you just put in 3,000 games, it's very hard to not win. And you can put in 3,000 games in a month. And so you just know you're going to win every month. I think when you just know you're going to win, it's quite nice because it's just a matter of putting your butt in the chair and playing. Live poker is often a little bit more difficult to exactly quantify what your edge is because you're playing a very slow game where you can't put in a ton of hands. And I mean, I've been pretty lucky when I have sat and grinded 5, 10, or 10, 20 no limit at the casino a long time ago. I won basically every month, but I realized I was probably running a little bit hot, or maybe my edge was huge. Who knows? It's tough to know, right? But if I had to look back, I was probably just running a little bit hot, winning 10 big blinds per hour, which is like 25 or 30 big blinds per 100, which is like a really good win rate.
Yeah.
At medium stakes, at least. And I think I like the idea of having a sure thing. So I suppose online, when I know I have a sure thing, it's quite nice. But that's harder and harder to find nowadays, especially as edges have gotten smaller and smaller online. So I guess the answer is live poker.
Okay. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I feel kind of the same way. Like, I enjoy online because I've done better online. But I still love the live field. I love being in the environment, just the energy, and I don't know, it's just the rush for making the deep run and just, and just interacting with players, we're, as you can see in the background, we have a poker table. We actually have our poker league tonight. We do a monthly poker league, and the top guys go to Vegas every year. And like, that's just part of the fun, just sitting down, being BSing, like, just the root of poker of just having fun and talking and, but I do better online, but like you were saying, it's nice to have the win rate, but I don't know, just that live field. I think you're kind of the same way.
Yeah. I mean,
yeah. Well, I was gonna say, I have this issue at this point where my limited resource is time. So when I do get to play live poker, it's almost always for pretty big stakes. Mm-hmm. And as you play for pretty big stakes, anxiety starts to creep in if you're playing at the limit of your bankroll, at least for me. And I mean, like, I have a monthly game I play around home that's 100, 200, 400, no limit, which is like a big game. I'm not trying to lose 200K in a day. And But I realized it's a good spot, right? So sure, I'm there having fun, interacting with people, chatting, but at the same time, I could just get wrecked. And I've
Yeah.
been fortunate to not have been wrecked at all in the game, but it's going to happen.
Yeah.
And I guess I realized that at some point you're going to run far worse than you ever thought possible, and that is I mean, I guess scary is the right word. That's
Yeah.
scary, especially if you know that that's going to cause financial strain or whatnot. So I always make a point to try to play well within my bankroll, unless the spot's incredibly good, and that spot's incredibly good, but that opens you up to getting punched in the nose sometimes.
Yeah. That's
Um,
true.
but I think as long as you're playing well within your bankroll in games that are a spot where you clearly have an edge, then that's kind of like the sweet spot, right? Like back when I used to play 5-10 no limit, I had a huge bankroll, and I was playing $1,500 buy-in games, and that was just like easy. I would just show up at noon, play until midnight, win every week, and it was great. So I think in the ideal world, that's kind of what you're aiming for if you want to be a low risk professional poker player who can still just like grind out a pretty good amount of money.
Yeah.
So you mentioned like time being a factor in your game selection right now. Kind of going back a little bit, when you first met your wife, and she found out that you were a professional poker player, did she know that prior to getting into the relationship with you, or when did that kind of get brought up?
So my wife met me at the Poker Stars Caribbean Adventure. She was there the day before the tournament started, as the last day of her New Year's Eve trip, and I was there for my first day of the tournament series, the day before the tournament started. And a long time ago, they would always lose your money when you wired it in. So every pro knew to show up a day ahead of time to find your money. So I was there trying to find my money. They said, come back in a few hours. The Atlantis Resort is like 2 miles long. So if you want to walk back to your room and come back, that might as well take an hour and a half. So
Yeah.
I stayed down there in the tournament area with me, 4 poker players, and their 4 girlfriends, and we all played a sit and go tournament, $100 buying game for fun. So we were just kind of goofing off, passing the time. And she came up and stood behind me because we were the only table interacting and having fun. And I realized she was not with any of the guys at the table, so we started chatting a little bit. I busted my tournament quickly and on purpose, and then I went to dinner with her, and it was nice. But she knew I was a professional poker player the second we met, because we went to dinner and we talked about it. Then we stayed in touch. One of my students had a charity poker tournament in New York City. He said, come play this. And I said, well, I'll go hang out with the girl, play your tournament. She found out I was staying in a very expensive hotel, and she said, that's absurd. Why don't you stay with me? And then I moved in, and that was that.
Oh wow, that's awesome.
Quick and easy. So she knew I was a poker player from the get-go. And I realized that's very different than what happens with a lot of relationships where people get into poker. And it's very important to realize a lot of significant others did not sign up to be with someone who's going to be playing poker all
Yeah.
night and on the weekends. So it's very important to have clear discussions with your significant other so that there is no confusion or hard feelings.
Yep. I
Or
totally
whatnot,
agree.
right?
Yeah, both of our significant others have kind of known since day one, kind of laid it all out. Like, this is what we do. We have full time jobs and everything, and we're very responsible. But we do play poker, and we do have monthly events, and we do travel, and we do play local circuit stuff. So, but again, with my relationship, every month at the beginning of the month, we sit down, we have a calendar, and it's like, okay, I have Brigado weekend this weekend, or we have poker league tonight. Like. So there's no like, oh, by the way, babe, like in 10 minutes, all 18 guys are coming to my house. So, we're very open and clear about like our communication. I think that's key. It's definitely key to a good relationship and a good poker career is having that balance and making it very clear and understanding to them.
I mean, that's the case with any relationship in business and life with spouses, whatever. You need to make sure everyone's on the same page. And that's what a lot of poker players don't necessarily do. Like they'll say, I'm going to play poker from, I don't know, noon until 10 p.m., but then they play until 2 a.m. And their spouse is mad. Or
Yeah.
they say, I'm going to make this dinner reservation, and then they just don't. And their spouse is mad. Or they say, I'm going to have the bills paid this month, and then they blow it all at the poker table or at the slot machine, and then their spouse is mad. And they wonder, like, how could they be mad at me? This is what I do, but it's not what they signed up for.
Yeah.
And I mean, this is why you have to make sure you treat poker very professionally. And if you play well within your bankroll, you don't do anything stupid or only a few things stupid, then it's probably going to be okay. But if you do a bunch of stupid things, it's probably not going to be okay.
Yeah, I think, Anthony takes poker a lot more seriously than I do, and that's only because we're at different stages in life with our families. My kids are still somewhat young, and my biggest struggle is like I internalize the guilt of being away from them for those hours at a time. And even though I'm encouraged to go by my wife, like she wants me to go do the thing that I like to go do, it's more of something that I need to overcome because, you know, they'll ask me now like, "Oh, Dad, did you play poker at work today?" And I'm like, "No, I don't play poker for work. I go to work for a different career, but I play poker like on the side for fun." So, how do you do with that? Like with your kids? Like I know they're somewhat younger. Um, do you ever struggle with like
being
being
away
away and just like missing them and like how that whole,
yeah, so they're 7 and 5 years old. I have two good boys, James and Thomas. And I recognize that I have to work some, right? It's not like I can just not play poker because that is part of my career. I'm very lucky that whenever I am home, which is, 20 days per month, I can work from home, hang out with them. Like right before this, I was hanging out with my kids. And they realize that I have to work some and that my wife has to work some. And it's okay. Also, if poker is a hobby for you and you don't really do a whole lot else, you need to take care of yourself too, right? I mean, if you are disgruntled because you don't get to do things that you call it want to do, that's not good. And if you have a supportive spouse who wants you to be happy and do things that you want to do, you should be okay with that. Because if you are, call it satisfied in other aspects of life, you'll be more present and more happy to be home. But if you're sitting at home thinking, "Oh man, I wish I was at the poker tournament right now," then you're not going to be present, and then no one's going to be happy. So I would try to tell you to take care of yourself within reason. Don't go overboard. I mean, I'm a good example of this, right? Like I could go play every poker tournament series. People asked me just a few days ago, "Why were you not at Borgata? Why were you not at Florida?" It's like I did not think they were worth it for me to go play. Simple as that. I know I should only be playing things I view as very high value, and that comes along every month or month and a half, and it usually takes about 10 or 12 days. And that if I have to travel to work 10 or 12 days, but in exchange I can be home a lot of the time, then it's probably a pretty good deal. Because if you think about most other people who work 9 to 5, they're never at home during the day.
Yeah.
And a lot of them don't, they don't have times to do whatever hobbies they have during the week. So they do it on the weekend, and that takes away time from the kids.
Yep.
So I realize I'm in a pretty good spot where I can do my hobbies whenever I'm traveling and away, and I can try to be generally present when I'm at home. And whenever I do try to do stuff at home, it's usually either at night after the kids go to sleep or during the day when they're at school.
Yeah.
So I would tell you to try to find a way to sneak poker in when it does not impact your family time, but also realize that if you are happy and content in other aspects of your life, you're going to probably be a better dad at home.
Yeah. True.
And you shouldn't feel guilty about taking care of yourself. You should be happy to take care of yourself. And your spouse wants you to take care of yourself. True. So do it and don't feel bad about it.
Yeah. I'm going to jump back a little bit. So the first time you came on my radar was during this poker series of books, The Secret of Professional Tournament Poker. And this was like, I can't remember when I first bought this book, or it was a 3-part series. This is part 3, actually. I've read all these. I want to say it was maybe around 2012 range, if I can recall. But I just want to say, like, there was a couple books that kind of like really opened my eyes, and one of them being the Harrington series. That was the first one that kind of like was like, okay, there's a lot going on here. Wow, what is happening? And then your book series here is what kind of got me into that. My question to you is like, how did you get to this point? Like, how did you get into writing and poker coaching? Like, where did that come from, or just naturally flew, or did someone kind of say, hey, you should be doing this? Or
so I wrote a lot in the various poker forums because I'm both a student, and if people want to learn from what I have to say, that's great. People would hire me for private coaching for sit and goes primarily because I was one of the biggest winners in sit and goes. And I was usually busy playing sit and goes and didn't have a ton of time to sit down and do like in real time coaching. So I would write articles or, quick blog posts essentially, or forum posts about specific topics and then just send it to them. So it cost them no money. I'd have this article I could send to anybody in the future who wanted it, and that'd be good. I was already making training videos back then. I had a training site only on sit and goes a long time ago, and a book publisher from D&B Poker, which is a big publisher of poker books, gambling books, chess books in Europe. They approached me and said, hey, we'd like your content. Would you be willing to make a poker book? And I said, sure. And then I was going through all of my articles, and I realized they already had like 300 pages worth of articles on lots of common spots. So I made an outline going through every scenario I think you need to talk about in poker. I slotted in my articles, and the book was 85% done. So then I filled in the blanks, and the book was done in like a month. And they were quite impressed that I could make 600-page book essentially in
no,
a
you did
month.
30 days. Wow.
Yeah. And then they said, this is too big. We got to chop it in half. I said, sure. And that made the first 2 volumes of that book. Volume 3 is essentially a quiz book. And funny enough, they came to me recently and said, hey, we need a book by the end of the year. They actually asked me this like 4 days ago. And they're like, who can write a book within 2 months? I said, well, okay, I can do it. And so I'm going to make a quiz book because that will be easy. I already have a lot of quizzes made. And I'm going to go through, beef those up quite a bit, and I'll be done in a month. They gave me 2, I'll be done in 1. Easy.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you know, we just did a book review on your most recent book. We talked
That's a good one.
things that we really liked and that we've used to kind of help enhance our game a little bit. But that was kind of where I was going to go. It's like, what's on your agenda now? So that's what's next is a quiz book.
Yeah, a quiz book where I go through probably 100 hands. People like the number of 100 for some reason. And I mean, that book you have there, 100 Essential Tips to Master No Limit Hold'em, is essentially 100 articles on common spots that you will play. And I think that's a way that I learn, because I don't necessarily have a ton of time to sit down and study, but I have 5 minutes to sit down and study. And so each chapter there is between 1 page and 5 pages or something like that on a specific scenario. Not necessarily a specific scenario, but a common spot you'll find yourself in, that if you do better in the spot, you're going to have a higher win rate. And that kind of thing is easy for me to write, but also easy for me to learn from. And I think that's the case for a lot of people as well. But I realize people learn in all sorts of ways, which is why I make audiobooks and training videos and YouTube videos. And like, I make all sorts of stuff to meet people wherever they are, because people learn in different ways.
Yeah, I think
but I like learning in that style. So
one of the things I like about, and I brought up in the last month's podcast, but just to say it again, is that the chapters are maybe 5 pages, 6 pages, and like for someone like me that works full time, I call it my lunch break book that I bring on my lunch break. I take it, I eat my lunch, and I can read through and write a couple notes, and still have 10-15 minutes to mess around and talk with the guys and everything like that. But I can get some a little study update every day. So I try to update every single day. I spend about 5-10 minutes, and the other thing too is my mind, after 20-30 minutes, it just overloads. So if I can get a good 10 minutes of just something I can lock onto and say, okay, that makes sense because of this, and then I can apply it in my head, so that's what I like about these small little chapters. It kind of works for me personally.
Well, good. You're going to love the quiz book then, because
yeah, looking forward to that. So
similar.
Going from the book, from being an author of multiple poker books, I think, what do you have, 15 now? 15
something
or 16,
like that.
something like that. Now you have pokercoaching.com. It's a training website. What kind of sparked that whole idea?
So I always had a training site since I was probably 21 years old on sit and goes. We eventually moved to only tournaments, then eventually we moved to no limit hold'em in general. And I never really took it that seriously until maybe 11 years ago, when I knew I wanted to be able to stay at home and have kids and be a good dad. So how do I do that if I'm going to be playing poker all the time? Because I used to play poker all the time. I was a professional poker player. And I knew I would need to be able to stay home. So how can I stay home? Well, the answer is either get a bunch of private coaching students or try to scale it and really ramp up the training site. And I was kind of halfway doing the training site, and it was fine. But I decided to really focus on it and beef it up substantially. And we made pokercoaching.com, and it's been going well. But essentially, I needed to be able to make some money from home using whatever skills I had. And I don't have a whole lot. So I made use of the assets I have.
So I'm going to jump into a little bit of the future now. So you're 39 years old?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you're right in our age range. My question is this, and I don't know how you're going to answer this, but you turn 40 this year or coming up. Poker Hall of Fame that will make you eligible. Is that something you're interested in? Is that something you want to strive to get into the Poker Hall of Fame?
I have not even considered it. I doubt they will put me in anytime soon or probably ever, because I've not played the super duper highest stakes successfully, which I think is their criteria. And the problem I'm going to run into is that what is the super high stakes among people who are roughly my age? And that's going to be people who are playing $1 million buy-in tournaments and $100,000 buy-in tournaments. And I've not really played those. I've played some big tournaments, but not super successfully to the point that I'm grinding them all day, every day. So I'm not even sure I'm the best bet. I mean, they do have room for non-poker players.
I was gonna say that too, like, because you're in the middle of both of those. Like, I mean, you're an excellent poker player, but in my opinion, you've done a lot for the game in the world of coaching. So, I think that might be something. I'm gonna tell you this. I'm gonna vote for you. I'm gonna throw your name out there when it
Thank
comes
you.
time. So, but
Well, so I mean, look, that's the problem is that I am not the absolute best poker player, and I'm probably also not the absolute best media person. So I'm, like you said, exactly in the middle. Where if they had a hybrid category, I would say sure, I'm probably a very good bet for that. And I'm not even sure they're going to necessarily take media people because I'm not sure they're going to view media people as people who have done something for the game. It seems like they're taking tournament directors or people who invent stuff. Maybe they'll take YouTube content creators, and if so, then I'm certainly up there. Or authors, maybe I'm up there. But I mean, it depends on the criteria and what they view as relevant. And certainly, I have plenty of attributes that if they decide those things are relevant, then yeah, I'm a lock. But if they decide those things are irrelevant, then I'm definitely not going to get in at all. I realize I don't really have a whole lot of control over it, and or maybe I do. I don't know. Maybe you're supposed to campaign. I've not even considered it though. So
well,
if they want to give it to me, I'll certainly take it.
Okay.
I think I am worthy.
So jumping into that, you have a ton of WPT wins. You don't have a WSOP win. Why do you think that is? Like, what's the difference between WSOP events and WPT events that I mean, you do well in both, but I'm saying, like, why is it that you have these big wins in WPT, but you haven't found the WSOP win? Why do you think that is?
Well,
It's way harder to win a 1,500 person poker tournament than a 200 person poker tournament.
Yeah.
Math is the answer. Also, there's a lot of variance, right? Just in general. And I mean, imagine you're playing a 1,500 person poker tournament, or wherever they are on average. If you're good, you're going to win what? 1 in 700 or something like that. And I don't know how many World Series events I play, but it's like maybe 700. So that would make me, I don't even know what the math is, 60% to have a bracelet, 70% to have a bracelet. I mean, 30% missing is a real number. It happens all the time, right? I certainly have run hot in World Poker Tour tournaments, have 2 wins and a bunch of other cashes, a bunch of other deep runs. That said, there's a lot of variance. I mean, I haven't played WPTs in quite a while, but I remember I had a string of like 5th to 7th places. And every time I just ran into a cooler or got it in good and then lost. And that's going to happen.
Yeah.
I'm in the Poker Go studio for the first 6 months or so I played there. I had a bunch of 5th to 7th places. And I thought, well, this is annoying. But I realized I was getting deep with chips and just losing a big hand. And that's inevitable. Then over the last year, I've won every big hand late, which does that make me all of a sudden really good at poker? I mean, I don't think so. I don't think I'm a whole lot better today than I was a year and a half ago. But I just wasn't winning my all-ins when it mattered.
Yeah.
And it's important to recognize in live poker that variance exists. And, that's okay. I remember talking to a player a long time ago who played only no limit tournaments and said at the World Series, you'll win a bracelet roughly once every 10 years if you're playing the non-super duper high roller, no limit hold'em only tournaments, all of them. And I mean, nowadays, I think I played 12 events last year or something, which is none, right? So if I'm playing 12 events, I mean, what are the odds I win a bracelet? Not good at all. Yeah. I'm 1 in 100 or something, whatever the number is.
And the fields are becoming more and more massive. I mean, they're just getting bigger and bigger fields,
They are getting bigger and bigger. And I don't play a lot of the smaller buy-in tournaments at all. So, I mean, really, it's just a math problem, right? If the average field is 500 people and I'm 1 in 250 to win and I'm playing 12 tournaments, I'm 1 in, 20? 1 in 20 years to get a bracelet? Something like that?
Yeah.
Roughly. And it's just a math problem. So sit there. I mean, I'm sure I'll get one eventually. But if I don't, I wouldn't be shocked because I know how math happens.
So a lot of the people that follow our channel and kind of follow our podcast, our page, I'd consider them amateur poker players and not really professionals. It's on the smaller side, just people who have that hobby or that drive to become better. What are some words of wisdom you could give to an amateur player that's trying to kind of improve their game and try and take it maybe to the next level that maybe you wish you had told yourself at a younger age? Or that you knew when you were trying to get there?
You need to figure out a way to find the flaws in your strategy. So a long time ago, when I was struggling at sit and goes, back when I lost a lot of my bankroll, it turns out I was playing poorly in the blinds. I was too weak and tight. And then also I was going all in with ace-x offsuit too often from early position. I hired a coach. The coach told me these things in about an hour. It was very clear I was making these mistakes. And my win rate immediately went up 5%. Just by stop these mistakes. Because these are common things that happen all the time. And I mean, an easy way to do this is to hire a private coach who is a good player and a winning player in your games, or ideally the stake higher than your games, because they know what it takes to beat the players in your games. But if you can't do that, you need to go through something like the tournament masterclass or the cash game masterclass on pokercoaching.com, which is roughly 40 hours long in 10-minute sections that goes through every single common spot you're going to find yourself in. And if you're not playing in that manner or roughly that manner, at least as your default, you're probably making a mistake if your opponents are anywhere near competent. And a lot of people have a lot of flaws, and they have strong opinions that their strategy is definitively right. And it's probably not. Right? I mean, I thought everything I was doing in sit and goes was right, and I didn't know why I was losing. And somebody who I respected said, "Hey, you're doing these things wrong." I immediately changed, and I immediately started winning again. Like, who'd have thought, right?
Yeah.
Like, imagine you just never defend your big blind. Let's say you just always fold to a pre-flop raise because you don't like playing out of position. Well, you're going to lose, right?
Yeah.
And that's not good. Or imagine you always play the Jack 4 offsuit because you like it. Well, you're going to lose, or at least you're going to lose way more than necessary with that Jack 4 offsuit. So, I mean, those are just obvious, simple examples, but there are many, many scenarios like that. Like today, a lot of people continuation bet the flop every time in every scenario, and that's just a big mistake. Or some people do the opposite. They only continuation bet when they flop well, and that's also a big mistake. So you can skew incorrect by being way too passive or way too aggressive. And you need to figure out which one it is in all sorts of spots immediately so that you can fix those mistakes and just play good, strong poker. And then from there, you adjust to take advantage of whatever your opponents do wrong. Also, a lot of people do think they know what their opponents do wrong, which maybe you do, maybe you don't. But if you're not playing with people on a regular basis, you do not know what they're doing wrong. You're just guessing.
Yeah.
And if you're just blindly guessing and making big adjustments on blind guesses, I mean, it might work out for you, but it could also result in you getting crushed. Essentially, recognize that you do not know everything. Find help, fix the problems, and go from there. Because a lot of people who are playing small and medium stakes games don't realize that if they were better, they would have won a bunch of money and moved up already. Mm-hmm. And, well, that's not good. Also, a lot of people in small and medium stakes games model their strategy after the strategy of the other players in their games. Like in a lot of 1-2 no limit games around America, people will raise to $12 pre-flop. And they just think that's standard. But it's not. It's probably definitively bad. And you need to be raising smaller and getting to the flop with deeper stack to pot ratios and crushing people on the turns and the rivers instead of just playing all in on the turn. But they just see everybody else doing it and they think it's standard. And it is standard for everybody else who is not winning at 1-2 no limit. True. You don't want to be a loser at 1-2 no limit like everybody else. Or a tiny winner. You want to be a big winner, and you can't do the same thing as everybody else and expect to be a big winner.
It's true. It's a good word of advice.
I mean, tilt is a good example too. Like a lot of people, they lose with their pocket aces and they get mad because everybody else at the table gets mad. They think they should get mad too.
Yeah.
And that's just stupid because you're watching losing poker players get mad. If anything, you want to do the opposite of them. They're getting mad in a spot, and if you just don't get mad in a spot, that's going to result in you doing better than them. So yeah, don't model your strategy after losing poker players. It's a bad idea.
All right, we're going to jump into our Nerdthusiast realm here a little bit. So obviously our channel is Nerdthusiast. Me and Brian obviously do the poker content, but we have guys that do movies and video games, and the whole nerd world is kind of in the channel. So
how are you guys so cool looking if you're nerds?
What's that?
You're so cool looking though.
Cool. I just got back from Disney. I was telling him I brought my kids. My kids are also same age as yours. And I was telling him how I was nerding out over Star Wars.
Oh, yeah.
The Star Wars world, basically, and how authentic to like how Disney just does such a good job staying authentic to like the theme. And I told him I came back with a baby Groot shoulder pet, and I'm like, dude, I almost wanted to put on my baby Groot shoulder pet, but I didn't know how you would judge me.
Instead, you got a football shirt on. Go figure. I'm actually going to Disney World with my kids and wife in 3 or 4 days, so that'll be fun.
Oh, nice.
I've been to the Star Wars place. I played this Star Wars trading card game when I was in 6th grade.
Okay.
I was very good at it, and I know a lot about Star Wars.
Nice. Yeah. Have you been there before to the Star Wars realm? Okay,
I have. It's great.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Incredible.
I'm actually going. I'm getting married. Me and my fiance are getting married, and we are doing a little mini honeymoon with the kids. And we're going to Disney and horror nights and whatnot. So we're looking forward to. We've been there before, but we're total nerd for that kind of stuff and love all that.
Listen, they have that one ride. I think it's called the Force Awakens, right? That has a humongous line. You need to make sure you get your fast pass for that, a week ahead of time.
Yep.
It's probably still going to be an hour wait, but you need to wait the hour. Do not wait the 3 hours because it's probably 7 hours.
Yeah.
You need to get the fast pass and you need to be on top of it. And they seem to change their fast pass rules all the time. So
they just changed them. My wife.
I don't know what they are anymore.
She literally she went through a crash course in like being a Disney mom. And I'm not even kidding. Like, she'll watch this. She absolutely crushed it. Like, we got on every ride at least once. And we waited, like the longest ride we waited was maybe like 30 minutes in a standby. But she had like, she was on her, all right, we got to get this. We got to get, we're over here. We got to go over here. And we're like sprinting across the park. But
it worked.
Yeah, I'm good at that stuff too. So it's my job to plan that for the family, and I will do my duty. I'm very good at logistics.
Okay, so what nerdy music or movies are you into right now? Maybe something you could say, a TV show or movie, or something nerdy you're into.
I mean, I like electronic dance music. I don't know if that's nerdy or not. I like Martin Garrix's music. He's great. I saw him at Omnia the other day.
So that was cool. Wait, so we got to jump into this because that was our next question. We had a guest on. I won't say who.
You can say who.
Well, I don't know
if he watched it or he maybe gave
a shout out. He said afterwards, but I don't know.
He said he didn't care.
So anyway, Frankie Panera was on, and he said that you are you like to dance. He said that you like to dance, and we were to ask you, what is your favorite club in Vegas?
Oh, goodness. I think my favorite is a club called Zouk, which is somehow not that popular, but I love it. I think it's the best one by a mile. They have gigantic TV screens on the ceiling and this huge black metal chandelier that shoots lasers everywhere and a giant screen in the front. I think it is by far the best venue.
And where's that at in Vegas?
That is at Resorts World.
Oh, okay. Nice. I haven't been there. I've been to Resorts World, but I haven't been to that club.
No.
Our club going the day after I arrive next time. It's great. It's the best place.
Yeah, our clubbing
It's the best place by a mile.
Yeah.
Actually.
Have dried up a little bit. Our clubbing days have dried up. We used to hit the clubs a lot, Brigada and stuff in our early 20s, but now we've dried up a lot.
I never really went to clubs up until like 5 years ago, but I found some friends who know how to do it right. We're not going to get into that today. But if I was doing it wrong for many years and I thought it was terrible. But if you learn how to do it right, it's amazing.
Yeah.
I need a club that has a seat though. Like I need a spot.
Oh yeah. You got to get a table. You have to get the best table in the place.
I can't jam in. I need a place to chill when I do go. Like I need a spot that like.
I will never go if I do not have a good table.
Okay, so now we know we got to hook up with Jonathan next time in Vegas because
that's implied.
Yeah.
So one question I always ask all our guests that come on. Everyone has them, and maybe not so much you now at this stage in your life, but when you were playing, what was or what is one of your biggest leaks to your bankroll outside of poker?
And it doesn't have to be gambling, but like, do you spend it on Disney or clothes or something that kind of leaks?
I mean, a long time ago, I probably spent a little bit too much money on food. I mean, at this point today, I probably spend an equal amount, but it's a smaller amount of my bankroll proportionally. So it's less of a leak. I mean, God, I don't know how much money I spend a month nowadays. It's a ton. So
like going to restaurants and that kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, I used to go to nice restaurants all the time. I mean, just rent in New York City was a big leak. It's when I moved to New York City. I mean, I don't know what rent was, $10K a month or something. And that is a big leak, especially if you're not playing full time anymore. So that is a thing. I mean, look, people can spend money on all sorts of stuff. Hopefully, if you're spending money on something, it's something that has, call it, value. I mean, I've put a ton of money into startup companies in little chunks at a time. And some of that has done well, some of it's done poorly. But that money is locked up and effectively gone. And if I had to do it all over again, I would just keep all of my money in something that's somewhat liquid, like stock market in general, right? Or like really, really big cap cryptocurrencies or something like that. I would not have put it into things that are far more illiquid, even if I do think they're going to have a higher return. I've learned a decent amount about finance over the last, 10 years.
Yeah.
And essentially, you want to make sure that you have access to your capital. And even if you will make a higher return from something, you don't want to put too much money in it because it's locked up, and it's effectively gone.
It's good advice.
But I mean, if that's what I'm doing with my money, is putting it into an investment that may give me 1,000x in 10 years, is that really that bad? I don't know. I mean, whenever I bought my first house, I think that was definitely a mistake looking back, because if I have 200K and I put 100K down, it's kind of illiquid, right? I basically just gave away half my bankroll, and I didn't need anywhere near 100K to play the games I was playing currently at that time. But if I wanted to move up and play live poker, I definitely did. And I had a bad year of playing live poker initially, and I sure wish I had that extra 100K. So locking up money, I think, has been one of my biggest leaks, because it has never kept me out of action, but it has not allowed me to play as big as possible. Like right now, if I just had an extra $5 million, I would be playing bigger games.
True.
Instead, it's locked up in all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, but like you said, if that pays off on the back end,
It's an if.
Yeah,
it's an if. Yeah.
I mean, like investing in startups is kind of like playing poker tournaments, where most of them lose, right? And you can just have all losers. But I mean, if you get 1,000x, you're great.
Yep.
But you don't know if you get that 1,000x for 10 or 15 years.
True.
And I've only been doing it about 7. So, a lot of stuff has died. Not a whole lot of stuff has come in yet. A lot of stuff is still brewing, and maybe it works out, maybe it doesn't. You don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll be rich in a year, or maybe I'll just be floundering still. Who knows?
Well, so that's all we got for our episode. We want to thank you, Jonathan, for coming
thank you
on.
very much.
We're big fans, obviously, and we read your stuff, and we definitely promote it to other people that talk about it. Where can you throw out some links and where they can follow you and things like that?
People can follow me on Twitter at Jonathan Little, on Instagram at JCardShark. I made that a long time ago. On YouTube at Poker Coaching. And that's about it. They can check out pokercoaching.com. We have a weekly $2,000 free roll. You can check that out at pokercoaching.com/free roll. You asked me about nerdy stuff. I said music. That's not especially nerdy. I also like the show Survivor. It just started back. I hope to be on Survivor one day. I think I will actually win because I'll be better than the other poker players who they've had on there.
Yeah,
So-
they've had a lot.
So me and Brian, just to jump into it, we are game show guys too. We actually went on to the Lingo game show last year and we won the episode we were on.
Nice.
So, yeah. So
Congrats.
we haven't got on Survivor, but I think we would do good on something like that.
I always
too.
want to do the Amazing Race.
Yeah, that's his dream.
that would
too.
be my dream, is the Amazing Race.
I think Survivor would be absolutely miserable, and I can put up with misery better than most people. I think. You don't really know until you get out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, good luck on your Survivor journey, and hopefully you
Thank
get
you.
on the show. That'd be awesome.
I probably won't. Odds are against me, but you never know.
Well, thank you for coming on. Thank you
Thank you
everyone
very much.
for watching. We're Nerdthusiast. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. And we'll see you on the next one. Peace out, everybody.
Bye-bye.